No, a lot of my
And hello, folks. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to So Chatty. I'm your host, Matty, aka So Many Games, and this is very impromptu, folks. I was taking the weekend off. I was supposed to have a nice weekend out with my husband. Yeah. His work had other ideas. So, you know what? I'm home, and I thought, let's get the three storytellers for the upcoming A Crusade of Thorns to just come and talk Vampire the Masquerade and all about these upcoming games because this is some exciting shit, people. If you love Vampire the Masquerade, I, I love Vampire the Masquerade. This is awesome. And you should see all the work that's going into this. So, we are here with three fantastic individuals. There will be three games. There will be three storytellers, and they're all right here. First up, Sean, how you doing, bud?
Good, man. How are you?
I am great. I'm so glad you guys were available to do this at literally the last minute.
Yeah.
This idea came to my mind last night, less than 24 hours ago. So, and here we are. Magic.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be with you today, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I am. Obviously, this is, I think, your third time on the show. So, yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
I love having Sean on the show. You know, Sean's a great guy.
I
Everybody loves
do my
Sean.
best.
My next guest is my Friday night DM. He is a very good friend of mine, someone that I do love very much. He is going to be running the Anarch campaign of this group. Quinn, how you doing, buddy?
good. My name's Quinn, and I'm an anarch at heart. I'm ready to rebel, but not get too crazy about it.
I like it. I like it. That's fair. That's good. And my final guest, he is one of the DMs from the Welcome to the Party or Welcome Party RPG channel, and he is a longtime fan and player and storyteller of this game, and is going to be taking over the Sabbat, which should be interesting. Zed, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good, good. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. This is
Thank you
awesome.
for the invite.
Of course. So, before we get started, since Zed this is your first time on the show,
Yep.
and I'd like to get to know you a little bit better before we just dive right in to this upcoming campaign. Can you tell us about your introduction to tabletop role playing games and where that all began?
Okay. The condensed but still accurate version would be that my introduction to tabletop role playing games happened when I was in fourth grade at summer camp, and someone brought Magic cards because I think Ice Age had just come out at about that point.
Okay.
And so
Oh, wow.
I thought Magic was really cool. It was something I had never seen. And then I didn't really see very much of it again until fifth, sixth grade, when I learned that D&D was a thing. In seventh or eighth grade, me and the boys at the time got together and we started figuring it out. One of my friends had been playing for several years by that point, and so he is even still our perpetual GM.
Wow.
So I started playing D&D back when it was AD&D, when THACO was a thing, and some dice rolls went up and some dice rolls went down, and I had a sweet rogue who had like a 185% chance to unlock stuff, because that was a stat you kept track of
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
then.
So that was second edition, I'm assuming, right? Because you said
yeah, well,
Rogue.
that was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, no, AD&D second edition. I played first edition, so
Okay.
and
Back when races were classes.
yeah, well, no, that's like Dungeons and Dragons, like
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's like no.
Redbox first edition. Oh my
Redbox,
god.
yeah.
So many editions. So
Yeah.
many
Um,
boxes.
But yeah, so I got into D&D, and then later on, a friend of mine in high school was playing Vampire, and he invited me out. That was like my sophomore year.
Okay.
And so I grew up in a college town. They were playing on the college campus. And so suddenly I was playing this fairly mature role-playing game with a bunch of people who were significantly older than me. And to be fair, any game I've ever run, I've had a minimum age requirement of 18. So I would not have been able to play in my own games, but I did at the time, and it was great. So from there, I've played all sorts of stuff and done all sorts of things, and yeah, that's how I got started. Was Magic was the gateway to D&D to Vampire.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. Because I honestly haven't really talked to a lot of people who would say that Magic was their gateway to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic. I love to see that crossover.
Oh, well, if I may,
Okay.
season 2 of New to the Party
Oh.
is gonna be on Ravnica.
Ooh.
Nice.
Because they released the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. So when we reconvene for season 2 after our break coming up, so I can run this vampire game, exactly that, we're gonna be chilling on Ravnica, and it's gonna be sweet.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have the book. I like to buy the books. You know, I also like to buy them on D&D Beyond, and basically just use D&D Beyond. I hardly ever touch those books. Yeah, not anymore.
This stream brought to you by D&D
D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond.
Oh,
But
and
not really.
speaking of books, so this little beauty here, well, this is mine. This was a Christmas gift from my husband. Thank you, babe. But I am going to be giving away one of these
Whoa.
near the end of the show. So
Whoa,
stay tuned,
that's
folks,
That is
because
a
Sweet.
big giveaway.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I'm like, why not?
Tweet that out.
So yeah, I did tweet it out, and then of course when I did the tweet, I forgot to tag like my guests and everything because I don't know, I was trying to throw this all together at the last minute, so you know, things slip, and I make mistakes. So anyway, but there is a tweet out there, and so yeah, we're gonna do that because why not? You know, like, yeah, dice are great, but books are fantastic. So we'll do that later in the show, and of course, I'm trying not to use my own time because I live in Mountain, which is the Forgotten Time Zone. At 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, when we wrap this up, we'll be rating Castle Mac as they do their Adventure Engineer show tonight. So back-to-back infotainment for your pleasure. Okay? All right, let's get to it. A Crusade of Thorns.
Yes.
This is going to be a Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle, 3 streams on 2 channels run by 3 different people with a floating GM, and all set in Los Angeles 1943. My first question, honestly, Sean,
Yeah. Yes.
this time period,
Yeah.
like it, I mean, there is a lot to work with here, but
There's a ton to work with.
where did that inspiration come from, and why did you choose this time frame?
So since I heard Vampire 5th Edition was coming out, I wanted to do a historical campaign.
Okay.
I wanted to do something set in LA in 1943, surrounding the Zoot Suit riots and the Anarch Revolt. It's been a project that's been in the back of my brain for almost a year now. And I've kind of always wanted to play around with that time period. And I think Vampire is particularly good outside of the modern age, right? I think the deeper you get into like high tech stuff, the more difficult it becomes to be a vampire. But you can play with a lot of the classical vampire tropes without having to worry about a lot of like modern cell phone technology. And it's just such an evocative time, right?
Okay.
It's such an interesting point in history because LA, right? So you're in one of the major naval ports during World War II in 1943. You are at the height of some pretty significant racial dumbfuckery by LA's white population. And you're 10 years after the end of the Sabbat Civil War. And in where we're setting this is a month before the Anarch Revolt truly begins.
Okay.
And so the entire game is built kind of to ramp towards a couple historical moments within vampire lore. We've made some tweaks to make the city our own, but it's the basic inciting incidents, unless something impressive happens in game, will happen that will kind of touch things off. And that's not a spoiler. I think everybody understands who's playing this, that this is kind of ramping towards the Anarch Revolt, right? In one way or another, there will be a clash between these three streams. And even if it's not the players themselves specifically clashing, right?
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
Hmm.
That's the hope, anyways, is to have three mutually supporting, mutually interactive streams that are all influencing each other's stories.
I cannot wait for this. This is wow. Okay, so the Anarch Revolt, this is something that is very well known in the lore of Vampire the Masquerade. But why that event?
Because it's awesome. No, because I thought I haven't seen it covered in any meaningful way in any lore, other than it being mentioned as a thing that happened, right?
Yeah.
There's not any novels written about it. There's not any like gameplay around it. Everything assumes that like game state pre V5 is that LA is kind of this weird half Kindred of the East, half Anarch stronghold that, there was a big revolt 60 years ago and Jeremy McNeil took over until he left. And so, yeah, I think it is a time ripe for storytelling where there's just enough bones where we have the opportunity to add the meat.
Yeah. I love that. And it's true. It almost feels sometimes like LA was kind of like I don't know, it was an area that they just kind of wanted to kind of push to the side, not really talk about a lot, and not really write a lot about. Yeah, I get that. So Quinn, so your first time playing this game was during Emerald City Nights, and if you haven't seen any of those, I mean, we goofed, we had fun. I ran some vampire games in 1996 in Seattle, but Quinn here was not only like in more episodes than anybody else, but he also played the most interesting character, I think, in that whole thing. So with that said, with it being kind of it's a newer game, you don't maybe have maybe as much background or experience as like the other two GMs in this group.
Definitely not.
But how has it been preparing for this?
Both difficult because it's a new mechanic, it's a new system.
Yeah.
It's something that I have played in before, but there are big differences between 20th anniversary and V5, although I think I like V5 mechanically a lot more. But I did fall in love with the mechanics first and the lore second.
Okay.
And I know that may sound sort of counterintuitive to the other two GMs here who are like the big lore heads, even though I'm not saying the lore isn't cool. It really is. And but it's also very, 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 very dark. And they kind of deal with issues inside of this game that thankfully White Wolf has sort of finally addressed, and have sort of, went forward and saying this was our bad, we're fixing this, we understand. And I'm happy to see that. But sort of reading through the book at least could be pretty difficult at times. So you just sort of focus on the rules and the mechanics part of it at that time. But it's also interesting because I'm learning all of this new lore that I am just absolutely just soaked into as well now.
Yeah.
The differences between the Camarilla and the Sabbat and the Anarchs, which I'm totally a Team Anarch now. Like, I am just on that bandwagon. The Camarilla are not as good as they make themselves out to be. But it's the difficult part of it is sort of, how it deals with modern day issues and inside of the book. But then I kind of have Throck's setting campaign to be like, oh, okay, well, at least he's I shouldn't say tasteful, but at least he is aware enough to know that issues like this should be taken not lightly.
Yeah.
And
can I say that was a conscious effort, right?
Yes,
like,
it was a big.
And Quinn and I talked about this. Quinn, Death by Mage, and Zed and I all talked about this, right? That we wanted to create in the 43 LA a reflection of how we thought you could treat some pretty difficult subjects in a really meaningful way, right? In a way where you could still push roleplay, push dark themes, but not do it in a way that hijacks causes just to hijack them.
And if I could add on to that, if not meaningful, at least not like outright disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not like the Sabbat game is almost certainly going to end up being a bit gorier and a bit more horror themed than the other two games, just by the nature of who the characters are and what they do.
It has
so
to be, really. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to claim that like you're going to watch it and walk away feeling like you have a deeper understanding of like, how man should act towards fellow man or anything of the sort. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we have to like jump up and down on top of, any and all semblance of kindness or courtesy or even just basic common sense, like how not to be a douche nozzle.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So, that's really, I think, where we're all sort of coming from. And so there were a lot of really good conversations, both between the STs, but also like between the STs and the players of like, what do you want? What do you want to see? Before we did our like character creation stuff, I made up and sent out a questionnaire for the Sabbat players. And a couple of those questions dealt with like, what do you want to see in a game? What do you not want to see in a game? What are things that don't work for you? And so being sure as well to respect that on top of trying to respect the history of the events that we're portraying and things like that. That's been at the forefront for pretty much the whole creation process.
And that's a really important thing to be aware and conscious about. Because obviously you don't want to gloss over anything or whitewash, if it's to use a term. The the things that really happened in this time frame, because I think a lot of us forget just how terrible human beings can be. And so no, I'm glad that you've all been looking at this stuff and wanting to, what am I trying to say? Be respectful without, yeah. So.
And
Well, I think
go ahead, Quinn.
I think the most difficult part of this is that Vampire is sort of a horror focused campaign, and like we already mentioned, it deals with a lot of real life issues and historical issues for our time period in particular. But in terms of gore and dread and aspects that involve a vampire game, we don't want to tell a story that where people can accuse us of hijacking somebody's history in order to make it a plot point.
Yes.
And,
there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's important because I am Mexican American.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also half Irish and half Mexican, so but it is something that my my grandfather particularly struggled through. He was in California during this time period. But he also fought in World War II, so he really wasn't around during this time period, but his uncles, his little brothers, and everybody else in his family was.
Right.
I don't know if they were in Los Angeles specifically. They may have been in Fresno during that time. Okay. I know that's where he ended up. But I think we do have a semblance of being a little too sensitive, but at the same time, there is a reason for people lashing out against plot points because they're not wrong too. Mm-hmm. Like there is a obvious sensitivity to this sort of stuff because whenever I read some of the stuff that happened to particularly probably one of my uncles during this time period, I'm like, well, okay. Like it sucks when you do read about it, but we definitely don't want to be, just using history for a fictional fantasy story.
Right.
And that's sort of the fine line you have to find in between that. And the questionnaire that Zed just mentioned, that's just a common decency thing to do as well. Before you start any game. And I think there is a little more semblance and credence to it inside of a vampire game. They even say in the beginning of the book, World of Darkness is a system around monsters, but it does not give you permission to be a monster.
Yeah.
So and it's sort of approaching that. So like when I'm planning on telling the Anarch story, I do plan on at least mentioning in it, but not going into grotesque detail about it. Like I don't want to, I will probably, the most I will give to it is you're driving down Grand Street and you see a protest, a Zoot Suit protest happening. They're probably just sprouting up at this time period and is being matched in a forceful manner. Right. Can I go into greater detail about that? Absolutely. Am I going to? Probably not, because I myself, as Quinn Victor Cornejo Sullivan, am not comfortable with it.
Right. And that's completely fair. Yeah. I think
the spot game. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Because I would like to touch on that, because we have mentioned, and anybody who is even familiar with Vampire the Masquerade knows that it literally has vampire in the name. Vampires are dark, evil. This is usually horror, and it's not pretty. This isn't Twilight, folks. These vampires don't glisten in the sun. Okay?
Rob was looking up at the sky like he was thinking about it. Like, is it Twilight?
But it's not Twilight. But what I'm saying is that it is a horror. You should expect darkness. But I think the darkest. What?
Oh no, I was you sprung a thought, but please continue. I'm sorry.
No, okay. No. Actually, go ahead. What's going
Okay. Ben and I were having a conversation last night as we were writing the Inhumanity rules for the Sabbat. And one of the things that we kind of touched upon is that Vampire, its core version of Vampire, it's like so I guess to put it at the beginning, we live in a post-goth world, right?
Yeah.
Being goth is kind of trite now, right?
Yeah.
So what does Vampire really bring to the role-playing table? And I think, to me, what Vampire is expressly good at is personal horror and political horror, right? I think you can remove a lot of the gothy trappings from Vampire and still tell a compelling story. And I think that horror lives in the fact that, at least in version 5, the vampires the stock vampire, not the Sabbat that we've written new rules for, the standard vampire is attempting to hold on to their humanity and attempting to find ways to continue to stay on a path that, while maybe not righteous because they know they have to kill and drink and things like that, isn't like swirling down the drain into abject depravity, right? And so that's one of the core tensions in version 5. And I think you can do that divorced from some of the old tropey sort of gothic stuff that happened back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
And I'd like to add on to that is just I'm particularly proud of my players too, because there is a obvious struggle between their humanity and kindred and that light and dark, except for Condry's character, who is, I won't spoil anything about him, but he is unique and I love it. Because it's not inherently a evil thing, although it may be a very evil thing. So I'm kind of waiting to see how he, walks that wire.
So you're telling me I might get a new player in a few sessions? Good.
Oh no, no. There's a reason he's an anarch. Though. So.
Well, and no, that is all. And that is all a very good point, and should definitely be said. As personally, I am not a horror fan. I don't care for it. I'm just not. I don't have any. I don't find it fascinating. I don't find it very interesting in general, horror. But I love Vampire the Masquerade, and I think for me it was always the political machinations and struggles and everything involved in this game, especially within the Camarilla. And I call him Camarilla, and I'll call him Camarilla until the day I die. So,
Potato.
Don't at me, okay? But and I think I am curious though, because, and I think this is where I personally struggle, and why I would like to talk to Zed about the Sabbat, because the Sabbat were, obviously the members of the Camarilla are not great, people, and they certainly don't have better values or anything like that. They're just not as, I don't know, out in the open with their shit.
Or crazy.
Well, that's kind of how I've always seen it, but I would really like to kind of see if I could get a little bit different perspective, because I've always just seen the Sabbat as just nuts,
Well, and that's what the Camarilla would want you to believe.
Right.
So,
right.
You and most other players are.
That's the most Sabbat answer.
Laboring under the point of view that the Camarilla most wishes to espouse, which is that the Sabbat are actually just a group of slavering, mindless beasts out to destroy and rape and pillage. But nothing could be further from the truth. The Camarilla is all about expression of self and willpower and understanding and personal perfection, straining against the limitations of our canite flesh for the purposes of seeing exactly how far we can really go to become the perfect predators of the night. So I mean, yeah, there is a certain amount of this. So just to kind of drop this facade for a moment,
You're really starting to sound like a mad scientist there.
so here's the deal. So most of my vampire experience comes from LARPing. I played in and ran a ton of LARPs, including I helped run one up here in Cleveland for a while. I came in for about 2 years of ST time in a troop game that had been running for about 10 at that point. We would average about 50 some players a night. And it was pretty nuts.
Wow.
So the big thing is this. Snidely Whiplash is a great bad guy for a children's show, right? Because he's one-dimensional. He's always evil all the time, and all he wants to do is evil stuff. Why? Because he's evil, and so he does evil things. But the fact of the matter is, the best antagonists in anything are the ones who don't wander around going but are actually the ones who believe that they are in fact the protagonists. We're the good guys. You're the bad guy. Darth Vader isn't cool just because of the helmet and the lightsaber, although that helps a lot. But it's also because he's a religious zealot who believes strongly in what he's doing, right? So a good the part of the Sabbat that we're really trying to get into is not like, yeah, let's all go steal babies and spike them in the end zone. We're awesome and evil. Woo!
Right.
Like, the whole point is that there's actually, A, there is a lot of political machination to be had. B, there's a lot of personal growth to be had in any of the storylines. And C, it's really a matter of focusing on your relationship with your vampiric self, which is the exact same story that's told in the Anarch and in the Camarilla storylines as well in the long run, right?
Yeah.
So the Sabbat don't see themselves as horrifying monsters. The Sabbat see themselves as liberators. They see themselves as freedom fighters and people who are simply trying to bring the Canaanites back to the top of the food chain, where they're which is really their rightful place in the world anyway, in their point of view.
That just brought something back from my own personal history. When I was a screenwriter's assistant on Sleepy Hollow back in the day, I was really starting to get breaking into that part of the industry, and the executive producer, who his name is Roberto Orsi, he's a little out there, but is wildly successful in what he does. But he always told me something that kind of stuck with me and my writing style to this day. A good villain thinks he's right, but a great villain is right. Yeah. And that sort of put me in, and I was just like, wow. It's like, yeah, if you look at Magneto for a comic book example, he's not wrong. Is the lengths that he goes at extreme? Yes, but every now and then his point is proven. And it's like, and Xavier's like, no, this will change, and Magneto's like, yeah, good luck with that. And so when the first X-Men movie came out, it came into a concentration camp, and him entering into that, it really kind of fell into that villain's line of thinking and being like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. And it's also why I kind of think Nolan's Joker sort of resonated a lot, not just because Heath Ledger gave an amazing performance, because yes, he did, but if you strip everything away, all we have to do at that point in any apocalyptic scenario is survive. And he was trying to make that point. And is he evil? Is he beyond reprehensible? Yes. But he wasn't wrong. And I personally don't like playing villains. You and I, Matty, we kind of did a Threads of Fate wrap up where you're like, what are the favorite characters you like to play? And they were all good guys. They're all like, yeah, blah blah blah, yeah, goody two shoes. I mean, my favorite superhero is Superman. Like that's just who I enjoy.
Wow. Okay.
I am one of those people. I love the ideal of Superman.
Superman's the worst superhero to ever be created.
We're not going into this.
And I've always been a Batman
and I would do everything I could to murder Superman every day. Okay.
He is the foundation of every superhero. We're not going into this. We're talking about vampires.
but we are still talking about it because I'm very much into Batman and you're very much into Superman.
I like Batman. For a Sherlock Holmes ripoff, I like Batman.
Wow, where did this devolve? Okay.
Anyway, yeah,
that's fine. You can have your Nietzsche and Ubermensch.
Okay. But yeah, no, it always kind of goes down to whenever I create villains, I like to find the point where, yeah, this villain does have a point. They're not wrong, but is every villain going to be right? No, some are just fucking monsters. Like they're greedy, they're selfish, they're vengeful bastards. Not every villain should be an extraordinary example, or else it's just gonna be a vanilla ride all the way through. But I like finding that one where every now and then the player characters will kind of toe this line of being like, they have a point.
Yeah.
So I think Vampire lends itself to that.
And
yes,
and for example, the characters that I like playing most in Vampire typically are characters that would be classified by other people as being like a bad guy. I played I played a deeply racist La Sombra character for quite a long while. And he wouldn't ever do anything that was like like, for example, I never did and still won't say the N-word, right? Like, but you don't have to get across the idea that you're just like not a nice person, right? But even still, at the end of every game, like I would at the end of it be like, I'm very sorry if there's anyone I offended, please, I'm sorry. And I would walk up to anyone I might have had an awkward interaction with, but no one ever gave me a hard time about anything because they understood what was going on. And also the character, while a bad guy, was never like Snidely Whiplash, never tying people to train tracks just for the hell of it. There was always some like deeper reasoning behind it, and people understood what was going on. And I do think that Vampire sort of demands a somewhat like a certain level of maturity of its players, and also of what we're going to have soon enough, which are its viewers. Oh Jesus, this is the Build-A-Bear representation of the character named Carver that I was just mentioning. But yeah, so this is Carver Bear. I'll keep Carver Bear here.
Okay.
I love it. All right, we got a new guest here on So Chatty, folks.
It's Carver. Oh, Carver.
Carver the Vampire Bear. Oh my God.
I want to diablerize you.
Okay, so that is disturbing and adorable all at once. I love it. Which, yeah.
That is the machination of some Malkavian. Now teach us about obfuscate. Well, here we go.
And that is a really good that's a really good topic to be discussing when it comes to this game, is the fact that really any group, any clan, anybody could literally be viewed as a villain in Vampire. Anyone, because there are no good guys in this game.
It's a game of perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone from a certain perspective is
the
villain in this game.
And so, like, there are good guys, but, like, literally, it's only the person inside saying, I'm a good guy. You know, like, you're not. You know, you're not. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, and I think it's one of the more interesting things about the game. Because there are a lot of shades of gray in the game. You know, there's not a lot of black and white. There is some, obviously. You know, killing is bad, all this other stuff. But, you know,
No.
it's, but, you know, like I said, it's survival. So, but there's a lot of shades of gray in this, and I think that's one of the things, at least, that makes this a really fun game to not only play, but to be a storyteller. Because it gives you so many options that I think maybe your standard fantasy game doesn't always do, or doesn't want to. What's that?
But here's the thing. I actually started by saying I would agree with that, but I've come around to a different philosophy recently.
Okay.
I feel like many storytellers put themselves in a box based on what's in the book that they're reading.
Okay.
By which I mean it is very easy to come at Dungeons and Dragons from we are essentially good doing essentially good things point of view, right?
Yeah.
But that is always a choice that the storytellers and the players make at the table. Now, when I play D&D, that's almost always the game I want to play. That is what I like about D&D. But I don't think that game is inherently built with a morality choice in it. I think what differentiates Vampire from that is Vampire is built on morality, right?
Yeah.
It's
Especially
almost
version 5. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, like, yeah, it's almost niche. If you look into it, you know, the morality of good and evil, like what is inherently good and evil, and I can never pronounce the name right, so I probably just said it wrong. The German author, philosopher,
Yeah,
Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah.
Nietzsche or Nietzsche.
Yeah, some German word, but it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
moral relativism is
go
really
ahead.
where Vampire lives.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
what is appropriate for you versus what is appropriate for someone else, right? So, like, for a Sabbat, a good thing might be something that would be horrifying for someone in the Camarilla, which might be something that is repugnant but not impossible for someone in the Anarchs.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So, for example, we had to create so the Sabbat used to, so the way the older games functioned, you had different paths of morality, right? So humanity was the default, but then more often than not, the Sabbat would need to the Sabbat and also certain very old Camarilla members or Anarchs would move away from humanity onto these other paths of enlightenment, is what they were called.
Yeah.
And they're each their own different system of morals and ethics. So in 5th ed for Vampire, what we found reading through the humanity rules is that they had sort of rolled a lot of parts of things into humanity and made it so that making like 50 different individual paths of enlightenment was not really worth it. There wasn't much to gain from it, and it would have been redundant. So instead, we made one that's sort of a catch-all, and so there is inhumanity, which sort of goes up, and then there is humanity, which sort of goes up, and then we made inhumanity, which is its inverse, that sort of goes down. And so, whereas at humanity 1, for example, you're at a humongous disadvantage to try to talk to humans.
Mhm.
At inhumanity 10, you're at the same penalty to talk with humans because you're still that far removed from like what is appropriate for a human. And so people can like sense that when they talk to you. and they're going to be put off by you.
Okay.
But at the
Right.
same time, you gain other advantages like greater ability to sort of control or rein in your beast, which is really more the point. Like morality in the game is there to help hold back the predator inside of every vampire that is always trying to get out. And so humanity is one way of doing that, by trying to be a good person. But there is an alternative path, and that's more based around like personal willpower and introspection.
Huh.
Yeah. So let me add on to that. I think the fundamental assumption of the core rulebook, the Anarch book, and the Camarilla book in V5 is that the vampire is attempting to hold on to their touchstones, these pieces of humanity that keep the beast at bay, right?
Okay.
And so we were faced with this question, like, no Sabbat fucking cares about that. That's literally the opposite of what they care about.
Yeah.
And there was no way to build that in. So in V5, for those of you who are veterans of Vampire, there used to be the path system, right? Where you could choose like the path of honorable accord, or the path of death in the soul, or the path of Lilith, or all these different forms of ascension. And you don't do that anymore. And so Ben and I spent all of this time creating a smorgasbord of convictions that reflect the old paths. That
Cathari still being my favorite one. Thank you very much.
Cathari is great. Yeah.
What to my fellow Gnostics? Sorry.
Yeah. And so, unlike, because you don't have tethers in inhumanity, because you're not connected to the human world, the more you try and grow in your inhumanity, the more convictions you have to take on, right? And so violating your convictions becomes easier and easier over time. And so true ascension becomes more and more difficult over time.
Okay.
And so that's, yeah. And with any luck, if we finish La Sombra tonight, I'll be able to release these rules, the Tzimisce rules of La Sombra. I'll be able to release a Sabbat packet to the world tonight or tomorrow that will have these rules in it.
What? Well,
What?
shit howdy.
Yeah, that is the hope.
And those of you who haven't gotten to see the Tzimisce Obtenebration Amalgam Power.
The Anarchs just remember Caligula, man.
Back in my day.
little bit of Nero, a little bit of Caligula, a little bit of.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, would nominating a horse for senator be all that different than current?
Oh, I see what
Political
you did
commentary.
there.
Topical. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, we've got a lot of cool shit in there. I mean, it's always fun to go back and rework rules that I've been working with for a very long time. And in this case, I got to look at stuff and go, I always thought that was dumb, and everyone around me always thought that was dumb. We all agreed that was dumb, and we never played it that way. So let's make it be the way everyone always played it instead, and just like write it up as a rule. And then with some things, because of the way V5 functions, certain powers and abilities just didn't make sense anymore. Like they just weren't really viable.
Okay.
We would have had to have just completely like Arms of the Abyss is one, for example, that is level 3 Obtenebration. It would allow you to summon a certain number of like shadowy tentacles from the ground, right? And that's a La Sombra thing. And that's an ability that in V5 just doesn't really function. Like to keep it on par power-wise with everything else, it just can't work the way it was originally written. And so that's one that we ended up having to like significantly redo. It's almost an entirely new thing now.
Yeah, I love it though. It's
I know, I really like what we came up with, but there just wasn't a way to really like transfer that over to the modern rules in a way that made any real sense or did any justice to the original ability. So, you know, with that, I think what we ended up with is a lot better. But then some of the rules ended up being much closer to their original counterparts. And in some cases, they're just codifying what were fairly common house rules and just sort of like baking it into it. So when you get into just another little sort of sneak peek shout out, permanency rules for vicissitude or something that like was always there and were often like sidebars and stuff like that, but weren't ever very clearly laid out in the original rules that now I think make a lot more sense in the V5 setup.
Okay.
And I got very lucky with my players' choices. It is a lot more narrative and storytelling and stealth driven. Even their coterie is oddly, in a way, stealth driven and espionage driven than having to deal with a lot of mysticism behind it. So, yeah.
I mean, anarchs just, romp around and protest and scream and shout ineffectually and like shake their fists at the sky, right? Isn't that what your game's going to be?
Yes, we are a bunch of nerds pointing our glasses at each other. We're not all Salvatore Garcia. there are smiling jacks. That's the whole great point about the whole anarch's history too, is that there is a odd mix of like revolutionary, like real life historical accounts mixed into it. It's like
I love anarch history.
Yeah, you have your Tolstoys, you have your Stalins, you have your, all these. Well, he kind of is. We're talking about Smiling Jack, and he's not a good dude.
Smiling Jack's a great dude. He's the friendliest anarch of all time.
Sure. Yeah, no, he doesn't have to be reined in 100% all the time. And then you have your like George Washingtons and William Wallace's kind of mixed into Jeremy McNeil. And
I think you've named like 3 epic rap battles of history over the course of the last like couple of minutes.
It's because I love epic rap battles of history.
Real quick here though, I'm about to click a button, and you may already see this in chat, folks. But here we go. So,
are we doing the thing? Is the thing happening?
Who's getting
Atomic Firebird?
Atomic Firebird.
Hey,
you just won a book.
I love them so much. They are in my they're in my Monday Greyhawk game and are amazing, and I'm so glad they got the book. Congratulations.
Congrats, Atomic Firebird. But Matty, I will add a addendum for you as well. An addition, I should say. Not an addendum, you fucking idiot. I'm speaking to myself. I will give away a copy of the PDF that could be redeemed at worldofdarkness.com for some of the viewing audience of V5 if we at the end of the show. So stick around.
Okay. I trying to see. I don't. They may have left, but it's okay. They've been.
I messaged them on Discord.
Okay, cool. No, it's they've been coming to the show. I'm super excited. Awesome. So I will get a hold of them, and we'll get that out to them. That will be coming from Amazon, because why not? Prime shipping, baby.
This show is brought to you by Amazon and Amazon Prime.
No, this show is brought to you by SoNerdware.com. But, I digress. Or you can get this storyteller shirt, folks. Yes.
Are we at the end of the hour?
No.
I wish I had my sweet shirt that I won during our charity streams, because I definitely got the Keeping It 100 shirt and then wore it to one of my teacher in-service days. And I had, 3 or 4 people who went, like it. And then, a bunch of other people were like, what?
What? Yeah.
I was like, you wouldn't understand. You're not cool enough. It's okay.
No, because honestly, on this show, I will forget to mention my shop. Like, there might be a robot that says stuff in chat occasionally about it. Otherwise, I just forget. So I talked about it. So what? Who cares? Okay, well, we're doing great on time. We still got another half hour. Awesome.
Can I just mention to Throck, I want to thank him for doing this game on Roll20. And that is, I'm not making a mock ad out of this. I am just saying, holy shit. I I was totally off on Roll20 for a very, very, very long time. And then the first time I really got back into it was with the Warhammer game that we do. And like when I really started to go into it and like kind of start messing around with some of the Vampire the Masquerade V5 materials in there, the more I really start to come around on Roll20. And then especially with the 5e game I played, not yesterday, was it yesterday? No, the day before yesterday. I'm kind of like almost all in on Roll20 and how simplified it makes the mathematics of everything in my entire life.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, just entirely. And now that I like actually realize that it, for a long time I put Roll20 as a virtual tabletop and virtual tabletop only with maps included, and I realized, wait, no, that's bullshit. We could still play Theater of the Mind and D&D to a narrative system, and even to a narrative system, especially a narrative system like V5, and that's just as effective and cool as well. So thank you for bringing this lovely, lovely platform into my life. You've converted me.
You're welcome, and I'm glad to have done it. I have a cat on my chin.
But yes.
Oh yeah, you got to reset. Yeah.
There we go.
Prime.
I am decatified. No, I love Roll20, man. I'm a big adherent to Roll20.
Yep.
I think the D&D 5e needs a map to work. That's just my personal philosophy, and so I think it does it really well. And I think also for Theater of the Mind games, just taking care of all the bookkeeping and mechanics, it's super great.
Yep, absolutely.
We're discussing, do all the players... Oh, okay, that is a really good question that Wiley has. In the games that you guys will be running, are all the players playing Kindred?
Yes.
First off, hello, Wiley.
Hi, Wiley.
Wiley plays in my Monday game, in New to the Party.
New to the party, yes.
Oh, Wiley.
He is Findalar Elbane, a fantastic elven ranger. So all the characters are vampires. So the game does support, or at least other versions of the game have supported, play as other vampire-related creatures, primarily ghouls, which are humans who have consumed vampiric, what's called vitae, but blood, basically, that gain sort of a smaller version of their powers. They stop aging, but they also become addicted to that blood. So there is like that side of things. But World of Darkness overall is a system that, in at least in its prior incarnations, and I think they are working on it for this one as well, has sort of distinct different games for different kinds of mythical, fantastic creatures that go bump in the night. So Vampire is one game, and then encompassed within the greater like World of Darkness, Castle. Encompassed within the greater World of Darkness is werewolf, mage, changeling, wraith, mummy, Frankensteins, and then hunters, and also just regular mortals.
Mortal games are fun.
Mortal games are a hell of a lot of fun. Hunter is sometimes fun, sometimes awkward. I find Hunter more difficult to run than regular Mortals games, even using the same basic rules. And there are a lot of reasons I could get into, but they're all for an older system, so meh, that's not the conversation we're having. But yeah, so all those different things are available within different games, but in this particular campaign, it's going to be vampires only.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, I will say, depending on the outcome of this game, I may or may not be doing a follow-up 1944 Open World of Darkness. Essentially, West Marches style World of Darkness game set in LA 1944. Maybe. I'm going to have to see if it can work. But
what do you
on
mean?
The drawing board.
What are you referring to when you say West of Marches style?
So West Marches is a style of play where a group of people can get together and go out into the city or the world and adventure, right? In this case, it would be more like an open role play environment. If you've seen Mac Marches, actually Castle Mac's here, they do it. It's a series of interlinked one-shots that tell a broader story across the tapestry of a region. That is what West Marches is, right? And so we're actually planning on starting one on Welcome to the Party 2, and it's going to be pretty cool, but it's not vampire related. But this idea would be to allow people to create characters from probably any of the major four, right? A changeling, mage, werewolf, vampire, and play them within the same setting. Probably not together to begin with, but over time, yeah. And then tell stories within the noir world of 1944 LA from the perspective of changeling, werewolf, vampire.
I'll be there with my technomancer.
I said changeling. Jake Ross.
That's
I
a
said
really fun idea. I really like that.
Yeah, that is the grand plan. Depending on, and this if everything works out, this is setting the table for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So I would definitely like to personally go back to something, and it's Roll20. All right.
Okay.
Why is it so great? Like, seriously?
It does all the math for you automatically.
I'm good at math.
And no, you're not. You're terrible at it.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying. Not a lot of people are, and it's a part of the play that not a lot of people really thoroughly enjoy. It takes you like 15 seconds to.
That's my brain. I'm old. I am an old man.
So by the question, am I to assume that you're not a big fan of Roll20?
I am not a big fan of Roll20. I've always played Theater of the Mind. That's just,
Well, you can still play Theater of the Mind.
That's how we played in the 90s. Like, we didn't know better.
Sure.
And also, all right. Like, when I draw dungeons, I like to draw crazy maze dungeons that gets all bonkers and stuff like that. And that's easy to do on some graph paper. And then explain it, when your players are also using graph paper.
And you can still do that.
But
all the
building
math can
it-
be simplified, but you don't have to build it. You could still have that graph for you. I am going to apologize for the map making tools inside and involved around Roll20 because they're not that intuitive, and I actually agree with that. But the main way I would use Roll20 is still using a graph paper, drawing a dungeon, and having that presented to the theater of imagination for my players. But what it really simplifies down to is the fast-paced motion of calculating totals and all of that involves around it. We have not a lot of people are comfortable or involved in using math, and there's a lot of people who play Dungeons and Dragons who would want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but are just put off by all the mathematical aspect of it. And I know I often just say Dungeons and Dragons out there because it's the same. It's the thing that just pops up in my head.
Durandar. Yeah. We're all playing some form of Durandar.
Exactly, and tabletop RPGs in general. And when it comes down to having all of that calculated out for you through a computerized version of that, then yes, it's a lot more fun to play and it moves things along a million times faster. And you're also not, with tools like the turn order and stuff like that, there's the chance of you accidentally getting your turn skipped over by the dungeon master, which is something I'm notorious at doing and I'm very bad at doing. It just makes DMing a lot easier in that facet as well.
So, I'm sorry.
Go on. No, it's fine. I was done.
Cool.
Sort of add on to that. So like we used to play, without like a battle mat and stuff like that when I first started. And I got to be honest, I didn't like it. Tell me, Matty, if this is a conversation you've ever had with a player. Okay, I go to attack him. Okay, well, you can't. You're too far away. Well, wait, what do you mean I'm too far away? I thought he was right there. No. I said like 5 seconds ago that he's actually moved over here now. But, okay, well, so if he's moved, then, okay, so how far can I move then? Right?
Yeah.
So, like, those conversations drive me up a fucking wall.
Yeah.
And as a
Same.
player, too, like, I got to be honest, like, maybe it's my ADHD. Maybe it's I've been ruined by video games, whatever you want to say. But if I can see it, it helps me to stay much more engaged. It used to be a running gag back when I was even in middle and early high school that, like, as the game would drag down, I would often fall asleep when it wasn't my turn. My friends would wake me up. I would, like, move my character, do whatever my shit on my turn was, and then I would fall back asleep. And that was just because, long periods of time where I don't have anything to look at and I'm not allowed to talk make it very difficult for me to really stay focused and engaged on what's going on.
And as a player, it sort of let me just add, as a player, it keeps you engaged because the combat is going by so much faster, and you're never like going through your character sheet being like, all right, can I use this? Can I do that here? Well, let's just see. And like Roll20 will just come up to you and be like, you can't do that, and here's a million reasons why. And it's like, okay, well, all right, that just eliminated any discussion between the dungeon master and the player as to why I cannot do that thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And I'm going to dogpile on this a little bit.
Good.
I will say, and I'm gonna. This is I think you should play however you find fun. I'm going to start with that.
Well, yeah.
I think you should play in whatever way you find fun.
I will.
But in my humble opinion, you are cheating the players if you're not using a tactical map in D&D 5e. Because
I disagree.
Flanking,
Go forward.
distance, charging,
Yeah.
all of these things that require accurate measurements to use within the game expect you to be using some accurate judge of distance between threat and caster or threat and threat, right? And so to me, the rules in the game are baked for a map. And so it is more difficult to fairly adjudicate an effect if you do not have a map on which to put it.
May I add on to
yes,
that?
flanking and charging are optional, but
So- no.
Hold on, because Dana Bay.
Dana Lee B.
No,
Dana
I know
Lee
her.
B.
I just connected the Lee and the B to one. You know what? Fuck it. Yeah, Dana Bay brings up a good point. Fun is the number one rule.
It is.
Yeah, I said, I prefaced with whatever you find fun, right?
But
For me,
so
I can't escape that feeling.
So I would like to add. So with my old school game crew, and we still get together and play pen and paper. We actually do a thing we call Air D&D. We rent a cabin in the middle of nowhere every so often, and we play D&D for like 4 days straight. It's phenomenal.
Where do I sign up? Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So the deal is this though, like, to make, like, as we got older and got jobs and things like that, we were able to start improving the game overall with additional accoutrements. So, we would have a battle mat, and we would like play like soft ambient music on speakers nearby. And later on, one of my buddies, I'm very fortunate, he has a fantastic job, and so he's all in on like Dwarven Fortress stuff, which, for those of you who maybe aren't aware, they're these like I want to say they're like made out of pottery or clay or so, but they're like stone, like castle pieces that you can fit together and make these huge creations, almost like out of Legos, but on like a grid system, like baked in. They're phenomenal. So in my mind, I'm not comparing Roll20 to playing with nothing. I'm comparing Roll20 to playing with all of the cool stuff that I like doing in my more modern, as an adult, storytelling stuff.
Okay.
And the advantage of Roll20 is that I can do all of those cool things for nearly free.
Yeah.
Like, it's free for my players. It costs me about $15 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm able to provide what in real life costs like he's in for a couple thousand on those things, plus all the other bits and pieces and bobs that go along with it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it's $15 a month, I can play music, and my players don't all have to be in the same place, and I don't have to wear pants.
Yeah, the best part. And
I'm not wearing pants right now.
To sort of bring it back to Vampire, I did have some points regarding the battle map and kind of taking agency away from the players, but let's just go back to Vampire right now. And not just Vampire, but a lot of new systems that are coming out adhere to almost a theater of the mind style of play because they are being written as a more narrative system.
Yes.
Warhammer is one such game that I have enjoyed playing, and yeah, no shit, right? That I have enjoyed playing so much that I have like dove deep into the Warhammer fantasy roleplay and setting, and also the Warhammer 40K, which I used to love as a teenager. I don't love so much anymore. But you know, in Vampire is one such system where I'm not going to say it promotes theater. Well, it does kind of promote theater of the mind, because I think they only mentioned a battle map once in a paragraph that I remember inside this book. Because it's so little of the game, and it has so little to do involving the entire mechanics of the system that there is really never a need to open up a flip mat in it at any point. And I really am starting to come around on more narrative-based mechanics and narrative-based games like Vampire because of that.
I love narrative-based games. I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me pile on that as well and say, I think most games today are awesome because they are more narratively based. I love Blades in the Dark is probably my favorite.
Star Wars FFG.
Right. Star Wars FFG is got the range band thing, and so it's kind of this bubble case. All the Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, Fate, like all of these games that focus on the narration, right, are perfectly created in order to create a theater of the mind style of combat. I just don't think D&D is. That's my sole contention, right? It's like theater of the mind works for a lot of games.
And it was intentionally written like that because at its core, it is a combat game. And although I enjoy playing D&D in theater of the mind, I just kind of the way I facilitate it is sort of eliminating movement from the feat scenarios and into melee and ranged. And so that's the way it sort of ascends into my mind. And but just to bring it to Vampire, like I love the system so much, mostly because it is theater of the mind, and like it's like Call of Cthulhu 2. It's the perfect narrative game in my mind's eye. Although the more I really become invested in Vampire the Masquerade, I think it beat it.
There's a lot of I think there are a lot of mechanics of a lot of good things going for them in Empire. I think it regrettably has some baggage on it right now. But I think it's got a lot of really good stuff going for it.
Are you telling me Lovecraft doesn't have baggage?
Oh, it totally does.
Oh yeah.
The original Mind's Eye Theater, or rather, the original LARP games were made by like Mind's Eye Theater. That was the name of the system.
Yeah.
Like and to be fair, in my opinion, I actually think that Vampire is the best game for LARP, and I actually feel like it's best played as a LARP. And the reason I feel that way is because while the combat rules have a tendency to be a bit clunky, the face-to-face conversations that you get to have, and the way you get to like pay attention to body language and all the non-verbal aspects of communication, I think are so much better and more engrossing when you're trying to embody your character. And that's in a way that like doesn't work. Like I've seen people try to make D&D as a LARP, and it's no funsies.
It's called Dagger here, isn't it?
Ha 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 ha. No.
Oh, no.
Actually, it's called. Anyway, there are versions, but the fact of the matter is, like I really like Vampire that way, and so like even when we're going to be running it here on Roll20 as a as a pen and paper game, I'm still going to be like I'm still enforcing like my players should not say my character does blah blah blah. It should be like speak as your character, act as your character as much as possible, right? Yeah. Don't say this person does this, say I do this, right? Things like that, because it's partially because it's difficult to inhabit the mind properly of an ageless predator of humanity in any really effective fashion. Like the psychology of it is just alien. But I think you can get a little closer by trying to get into the brain space of just saying I instead of they. And I think that helps.
Well, I mean, whenever we're playing, we should always be.
Well, sure, but like there are some games and that's generally how I prefer to roll, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of people for whom that is not the common convention. And if you roll around on Twitch, even like you'll see there are a lot of games where people like will refer to their character in the third person much of the time. It is its own play style. It is not my preferred play style. But I'm not going to say that it holds no merit, but simply that it's not what I'm going for.
And I've actually played in games in Adventurers League where there are dungeon masters who have pulled it off phenomenally, and have described exactly. They don't really spend their time inside of the voice of an NPC. They instead describe what they are saying and how they are saying it instead. And I've become immersed in that sort of version of role playing, and it's their style. And although I don't prefer to tell a story that way as the storyteller, I can definitely see the merit to doing it as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Oddly enough, it was in a Call of Cthulhu game, and I think it kind of has to be in a Call of Cthulhu game. I think the description was, the noises that you hear inside of the barn. It was a modern telling of Dunwich horror. Are utterly alien to your ear and fill you with aspects of dread that are unbeknownst even to your own psychology. And I was like, whoa.
for what it's worth, I did assign Dunwich horror to my sophomores one year, and it was a hell of a lot of fun.
Ooh. All praise Yalkasoth.
We did it instead of Shakespeare that year. It worked out pretty well.
Oh, great. Totally in charge.
But yeah, no, I mean, the way Quinn kind of just talked about it, it actually does kind of make a little sense now in my brain that maybe some people prefer to play the game and tell the story like they are like writing a story instead of actually playing out the story. That's what it sounds like, because if I was saying like my character is doing such and such and he's saying this in this type of way or whatever, instead of just doing it, like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's not my preferred style of play, but hey, I get it. So we are getting close to the 7:30 mark, so we need to wrap up here so that we can
Heartbreaking. My heart's breaking.
I know. But what I would love to do right here, right now, is would you, the three of you, like to come back in a month from now, and we can talk about how the campaigns are going.
So
yes.
I hope we can do it. I know we're gonna have.
As long as everything hasn't burned to the ground.
Well, yeah, that's
true. Assuming that we're all still talking to each other.
I see, and I think this is a good place to bring everyone back together, and we will, because I definitely want to continue this conversation, and so folks, The next
Vampire
Saturday,
the
a week from today, January the 5th, on Welcome Party RPG at noon Eastern, they will start with the Sabbat, being run by Zed. Then on the 8th at 8:30 Eastern will be the Anarch game, run by Quinn. And then on the 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern, the Camarilla game will be run by Sean. So get those, check those premieres. And I did forget to mention that the Anarch game is on SoulBearRPG, and then the Camarilla game will be back on Welcome Party RPG. So, yes, because I said the thing and then the thing. Yes, that's the thing. So with that said,
We have the PDF.
oh yeah, we have a PDF to give away. So
We have a
Let's
PDF
give it
to give
away.
away.
Yeah.
let me bring that up and
Maria.
let's see. Oh, whoops. I think I messed that up. But hold on. And I just have to go through and
I like Camarilla, but
everything's fine. Oh, Zed won
the
it.
Camera
we should
Hey!
probably redo
Hey,
that, right?
okay, well that's not gonna work.
Next one.
please.
Do it again.
I like saying my name. They
Oh, there we go.
Hey, Digest, congratulations.
There we go. Awesome.
Digest is one of our Anarch players.
Oh, very cool. And what else? Oh, so we'll go around the table here, and Sean, why don't you go ahead and start us off? Where can people find you on the internet, and
my
what are you
God.
up to?
Well, right now you can find me writing a lot because we're finishing the Vampire 43 book, and we're probably going to give it away for free at this point because I don't think we're going to be able to do anything else with it. So we're just going to give it to you. Everyone's just going to be able to have it.
Digest
you can
has the
find-
book.
Oh, Digest has the book. Somebody else needs to
I
win.
thought
Oh.
it did. Yeah.
Okay.
I figured
I was
you
like, I'm
might.
pretty
Yeah.
sure
I
I'm
can
gonna
do
wait for
that.
to see it, but
It's the Vampire V5 book, Varnish Truth.
Let's
So yeah, where can you find me?
see.
Friday nights. I've been on kind of a holiday hiatus for the last 2 weeks, but starting this Friday, you will find me in my dungeon heist game on Welcome to the Party at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can find me Sunday morning, Sunday at noon with Quinn here, playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay on Welcome to the Party. And then in the evening, I'm on the Forefront playing in a 4th edition, the World War I themed game. And then Mondays on the Greyhawk channel, I'm running the Tales of the Liberation of Joff with Atomic Firebird, who's in chat right now and is an amazing human being, and I'm very glad they're here. And then, of course, starting next week on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, running our Camarilla game. So a lot. I'm in places all the time. I'm really excited about our vampire game, and that's, yeah. Oh, Miss Misery's in chat, too. Yeah, Miss Misery's here, too, for our...
You're a little long-winded there, Sean.
she's also in our Warhammer game. Sure.
I love giving you a hard time, man. I love you.
I love you, too. I love you.
Okay. Quinn, where can people find you on the internet, and what are you up to?
give me 1 second. Okay. You can find me over at SoulBearRPG. That's SoulBearRPG on Twitch and on Twitter as there as well. I DM Threads of Fate, which is on a hiatus currently. And then on January 8th, I will be storytelling. Is that right? I'm going to say it is. Storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling. Yeah.
I was going to say game mastering, yeah, storytelling. The Anarch version of the Vampire the Masquerade V5, as we were discussing here on SoulBearRPG over there as well. Plus some other projects in the works over for myself. And, Solobon09, because I'm streaming on Twitch now. I'm going to check it out.
Awesome. And, Threads of Fate is awesome. Come check it out. Zed.
That it is.
Where can people find you on the internet, and what are you up to?
People can find me at ZedX, ZEDECXZ, on Twitter, which I can type for some ZEDECXZ. You can find me that way on Twitter. I am going to be finishing up this current season of New to the Party, which runs on Mondays from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We've got 2 more sessions left, and it's looking like I got to get with my crew, whether it's going to be this Monday or the next Monday is going to be the first of the last 2 of the season. But we're going to be finishing up this season. Then we'll be on hiatus until the end of the Threads of Fate story, and then we'll come back for season 2, chilling in some Ravnica goodness. And my players over there are pretty sweet, pretty slick, pretty awesome. I dig them all, and it's good fun, good time. And then otherwise, I'll be running the Sabbat on Saturdays. And that's going to be from noon until 3 on Saturdays. So going to get your dose of mature gaming content in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday, which I think is just perfect, really. Yeah, that's where I am. That's what I do. That's what I be. And then all the rest of my time is spent hiding in a hole and preparing horrible essay assignments for my students.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you guys for being able to do this at such short notice. I'm Matty, and of course you can find me Wednesdays and Fridays on SoulBearRPG playing Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what I do. And you can check out my shop, stonerware.com, because it's great. And what else was I gonna say? I don't know.
You have a Crin game.
We love you, Matty.
Oh, yes. So this Friday, coming Friday. Yes, we're actually gonna start that two shot, not one shot, 2 shot, where the Threads of Fate are going to Kryn, and we're going to Dragonlance. Yes, Dragonlance. I love it. Some people don't. So
I'm
what?
looking forward to playing it.
I'm excited. Yeah, and we may end up running into some characters from the novels because it's fun that way.
It is fun that way.
It is fun that way.
And if I can get this thing to
You're gonna actually get scorched by Agonazar?
why aren't you working? I think, hold on. I have to reload my dashboard because it won't let me find Castle Mac in the raid thing. So
I need to learn how to fucking use that thing. I swear.
there it is. Okay, so we're going to be raiding Castle Mac because Adventure Engineers starts right now. So thanks for joining us, folks.
Woo!
I
Thank
love
for
you.
having us.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you,
And-
Matty. It was so nice talking to you. Feels like fucking forever.
I know, buddy. And here we go.
If you don't mind, though, I would like to talk to you about Crin for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, totally.